You're listening to 94.9 Rhema Central Coast. If you were listening before the news, I was telling you about a guest we hope to have in the studio. Well, that guest has materialised. It's David Kirkpatrick. So good morning to you, David.
Good morning, Phil.
Now, as I briefly mentioned before the 10 o'clock news, David is an interesting person to have a chat with because I feel as if I'm talking to two people. There's a medical background, so actually it's Dr. David Kirkpatrick, isn't it? But there's also a musical background there. So I won't say he's had two lives because I'm sure they've intermingled and sort of crossed over, but we'll divide you up. Well, if it's okay with you, David, I'd ask you to put your medical hat on first and we'll just talk about that career. Because you spent over 20 years here on the Central Coast as an emergency department specialist, didn't you, in Gosford and other local hospitals. So, yeah, that would have been a very stressful job.
Yeah, well, it is. And Gosford and the Central Coast were at the forefront of making emergency medicine a specialty. I came here as an intern and in 1982, and I have remained on the Central Coast. I've been away in Perth, I've been away in Canada in training. And when I arrived here, it was like anywhere else in Australia where you had the least experienced doctors treating the sickest patients with the least backup, which is, in what was then called casualty or accident and emergency.
Yes.
And we here were very lucky to have a medical director and who had actually worked in the MASH units, the mobile ambulatory surgical hospitals in Vietnam. And he came back and he talked to the director of ED here and he said, look, we could do better. And there were like-minded people all around Australia. They really decided that we should make it. And it was a fledgling specialty in America, but Australia was at the forefront. I mean, when I started training to be an emergency medicine specialist, there wasn't even a college of emergency medicine. It was a bit of a leap of faith. So it was a very exciting time to be part of it. And as you say, I've actually spent 36 years working on the Central Coast as a doctor, and 14 of those years I was the area director of emergency services, which obviously was Gosford and Wyong.
Yes.
Oversaw the building of two redos of two emergency departments. And it was an exciting time that we grew from two emergency specialists when I first started, one of us at Wyong, one of us at Gosford and swapping over, to I don't know how many they've got now. I mean, it's like 30, 40 or whatever. I mean, it's an incredibly great thing to have happened across Australia.
Yeah. And would you say that's the biggest change you've seen in your career, that emergency medicine has become a specialism in its own right?
Yeah, well, certainly. I have seen quite a few things that have changed. Like when I first started, we didn't have a CT scanner. Okay, now we can get a CT scan 24 hours, 7. We got MRI scanners. If you came in with a heart attack, we gave you aspirin and morphine. Okay, so in my lifetime, which is I'm not that old.
No, I can vouch for that, listeners.
and of course, and the certainly like childhood vaccinations, diseases like epiglottitis that used to be the most terrifying thing I think I ever treated, and the meningitises. Now with vaccination, the younger doctors would never have seen one in their life.
No.
And that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that's right. So look, the emergency department, we've seen sort of representations of it on TV, I suppose. Some of them are reality TV and others are just Hollywood dramas. What's it like? How do you stop yourself and the rest of the staff there from being overwhelmed by the horrific injuries you're looking at? You need that laser focus, don't you? It would be very easy, I think, to be just become overwhelmed and sort of not know what to do.
Yeah, well, that's I guess that's like in anything that requires urgent and decisive action. So you train for it. You've got to trust your training. You have to be, and it's the wrong word because people take it wrong, but there is a detachment. You can't become emotionally involved, okay? It's very, very difficult. And I remember when I first became a parent, how much more difficult it was for me to treat young children, severely injured children, because I got emotional, because I had my own children and I could project that onto that. So you had to, particularly when you're the consultant, your team looks to you to make decisions, to not dither. You got to trust your training. And of course, the longer you're in the job, the more you've seen. So you can say, I've seen this before. This is what we're going to do. But it is teamwork. You build a team. People say to me, do I miss working? I don't miss work per se, but I certainly miss the colleagues I worked with, because emergency departments are built from the front door, from the ambulance and the paramedics through to the clerks, to the porters, through the nurses, the doctors, everyone else. It is a team effort. It's not just one person.
Yeah. We mentioned there Hollywood loves a good medical drama. I'm not talking about the sort of fly on the wall 24 hours in accident emergency programs, but what's the one thing they always get wrong when it comes to Hollywood medical dramas? And you look at it and you shake your head and go, no.
I avoid watching them, Phil, but there was a very interesting article done in our college paper on the recovery rate of cardiac arrests in Hollywood dramas opposed to real life.
Yes.
And in the movies and on the TV, it's about 85%. And in real life, it used to be like 5 or 8.
Wow.
Of course, that has increased significantly now. With all the pre-hospital treatment and the rapid treatment you can do.
Yeah.
So there's one example.
Yeah. And we talked about all the changes that have taken place in the emergency room. How has being an emergency room doctor and sort of seeing life and death on a daily basis, how did that shape you in your relationships with members of your family and people that you interact with outside of the hospital environment?
It's a good question. It's because obviously I view those sort of things. I do have a bit of a clinical detachment, but obviously I'm still emotionally involved. I mean, my wife and I, my sister nursed my mother at home until she died of cancer, and it was certainly helpful having the medical expertise and that, but it still was traumatic and emotionally draining. I take a more sanguine approach to these things, but you're not a good doctor if you're not empathetic. You can do that. You can do your clinical work, but you've got to have empathy and you've got to have time. That's the hardest thing in emergency medicine. You have to make a connection with someone within minutes who has to trust you to do something that seems quite invasive or painful, that you're telling them this is going to fix you or save your life.
Trust me.
Trust me. And they've never met me in their life. Why should they trust me? So you've got to have the ability to be empathetic. And it doesn't take much to take a couple of minutes to sit down and listen. As director, I had to deal with all the complaints. 95% of the basis of every complaint was they didn't listen to me, they didn't take credence, they didn't think I was right. Yeah. Very rarely did, they cut the wrong leg off. That doesn't really happen. No. But the majority of people say they didn't listen. And that's the most important thing you can instill in your training for staff is to listen to them. Every parent knows their child. If they says their child is not right, they're not right.
Good feeling.
They've got you've never seen the child. They know. And if someone says this has never happened to me before in my life, you have to give everyone that credence that okay, if what they're saying is correct, what could it be?
Okay, 2 more questions and then we'll break for some more music and I'll ask you to change hats. Waiting lists in emergency departments. Somebody have been sat there for 2 or 3 hours. What would you like them to know? Because they're getting angry, they're getting cranky. Look, all these other people are coming in. I've sat here 3 hours. I've got better things to do. What would you like them to know?
It's very hard, isn't it? Because what I'd love them to know is to have a camera that shows them the resuscitation room and what we're doing. But obviously we can't do that. We try to keep people informed. That's why you have the triage system. And we have improved it with better staffing is that just because you come in at a lower acuity, it's not great that you have to wait 3 or 4 hours. So you try to hive off part of your staff and that to look after the lower acuity and then have enough staff to do the high acuity stuff. It's very tough because you can understand people being frustrated and angry. The important thing is to give those people other avenues of care rather than coming to the ED.
Right.
And I can know that, after our general practices are closed or whatever, but the urgent care centres, the days of home visits by GPs, it just doesn't happen anymore. So you do get the lower acuity stuff in. And I always said to people, why are they wasting our time? And I said, we are not the health police. Everyone has the right in Australia to come to hospital and ask for medical treatment. Now, it is right. If you've got a sore toenail, you're not going to get, up the front.
You're not going to be rushed in, are you?
That's right. But there is a time limit where someone with a cut or something who has got pain or discomfort, there has to be a time limit where you can try and massage that. And that was the bane of my life when I was a director. It's the bane of everyone's life now. I mean, waiting times and trying to get people in is because of this thing everyone's heard of called bed block. And
and it's resources.
That's resources, and that goes right through to the other end of the hospital of people coming out of hospital. It's not, because if we can't move a patient from ED into a bed, we can't put another person in. They can't get the person out to go somewhere else.
You're not working in a vacuum. You depend on
nothing works in a vacuum.
Yeah. The other final question I'd like to ask you is, what medical advice would you give our listeners to keep them out of the emergency department? I'm not talking about diseases and illnesses like heart attacks or strokes, but the trauma type things. What one piece of advice would you give somebody in an attempt to keep them away from seeing you in the emergency department?
Well, first thing is always have a good primary care. So have a good GP. See them regularly. Make appointments, even if you don't, in a 3 months' time. You don't always have to go, but make sure that you actually keep a check on that. And then just try and keep healthy. Yeah. And we're not talking about you have to go to the gym and pump iron and run a marathon. It's about walking, keeping your balance, just doing general walking, just maintaining your body so you don't have falls as you get older, maintaining some strength. Realistically, you don't have to be on the latest fad diet. You just need to eat and drink in moderation.
Common sense.
It is common sense, but it's not always easy. It depends on the job you're doing and the other stresses in your life. But it is. We are a different society now. In the old days, you had to walk because you couldn't have a car, or you had to get out and dig in the garden. So you had physical activity as your day-to-day life. Now, if you can be in a sedentary job, you don't. So you actually have to put aside that time. I guess the real answer is don't be time poor. Invest time in yourself.
Yeah.
That's what you have to actually say. I'm going to put half an hour a day for me to have a walk or to do a swim or do something that is for me.
Just for me. Yeah, good advice. Thank you, Dr. David. We'll take off your medical hat and we'll come back and we'll put your musical hat on. But we've got some music first, and it's from the band that you front. We've got Two Tone Pony here.
Great.
With A Life Well Lived. Let's have a listen to David on this track. Here we go. You're listening to Rhema Mornings with me, Phil, and with Dr. David Kirkpatrick. We have been talking about his medical career, really fascinating and interesting career he's had in medicine. But as I said earlier, we have changed hats for him now. He's taken his medical hat on. We've got his musical hat on now. And look, I've been keeping a bit of a secret from you. I don't know whether it's a secret. And David doesn't mind me sharing this with you. But you have very famous parents, don't you, David?
Yeah, that's right. I grew up, I was literally born on the road while my parents were travelling, born in Rockhampton, Queensland, whilst they were on tour. And, of course, grew up with my parents, Slim Dusty and Joy McKean. And I was born in 1958, which was a year that the pub with no beer went ballistic. So Slim went from being a country music to top of the pops.
National.
And it went quite, yeah, that's right. His whole life changed.
Yeah.
And it's, so I grew up just around music. I mean, as I was saying to you before, I thought it was normal that, you walked in backstage. I saw it all from behind the curtains, which is very interesting because then, as I grew up right throughout my life, I wasn't dazzled by the footlights, as they would say. I saw all the hard work that went on before, where, in the old days, setting up the country hall with the chairs, and then after the show, them sweeping the hall out, packing the chairs away, driving back to the caravan and hitching up and heading off the next morning. So it was hard yakka. But it instilled a great love of music in me, and I was like most kids, I grew up, and my sister was 6 years older than me, so she was right in the Beatlemania and the Stones and that sort of stuff, so I was listening to all of that through her, and then I was sort of more in the 70s going through at
heavy metal.
I was in, I was in a band. I started in my first band in year 10 at Trinity Grammar School, where I was at that stage. And it's quite a great story that the bloke who came up to me and said, I hear you play drums. Do you want to join my band? Glenn Willie is in my band now. So we've remained mates all those years, and he's a keyboard player.
Yeah.
So he's in Two Tone Pony.
Yeah.
So,
I read somewhere, I think it was an article I read about you online, that you grew up with contortionists, with strongmen, there were trapeze artists. These were people that you were meeting on a day-by-day basis.
Well, yeah, they were my babysitters half the time. Yeah. So it was quite interesting because the shows back in the late 50s and the 60s, when Slim and Joy started doing their around Australia trips.
So these are travelling shows,
These are travelling shows that went you started in Victoria, and eventually they went across the Nullarbor, right around and back. That was 9 months on the road. So you had a travelling variety show. So it wasn't just music. You had comedians, you had contortionists, magicians, some sort of variety act. It was all part of the show, and they all pitched in and did other bits and pieces. So, and of course, they were away from all their families for 9 months. So they became a very tight-knit little travelling community.
We only see, I suppose, or the audience only saw the sort of the polished, glitzy side of things, but it must have been a really tough life for your mum and dad.
It was really hard life. They carried all of their gear in the old days because they were going out to these small country halls. They had to carry all of their own seats. They would set up all their collapsible seating. They took everything, their footlights, they took all the musical equipment, put the show on, and then they'd have to pack it all up that night. They'd have to clean the floor so they didn't lose their deposit, and then pack it up, get home, have a quick sleep, and then often hitch up and drive to the next destination the next morning. So there was a lot of hard work. Yes, I've seen that the fact that, to get where you want to get to in any job, but, in those days, it was pretty hard work.
Yeah, physically demanding.
It was physically demanding. They had to be, they had to be mechanics. They were driving trucks, and if it was breaking down halfway between Cunnamulla and somewhere, they had to fix it, changing tyres, bogged down axles in mud, everything. And they're trying to do that and trying to get to the next place for a show.
Yeah. And then I think you said you went to bring a little bit of stability and consistency in your life, you went to boarding school. Yeah,
that's right. My mum was homeschooling me, which was fine because I'd usually get through a week's work in 3 days and then I'd be up to mischief. So, but it was social because I wasn't getting the chance to actually spend time with any kids my own age.
Yeah.
So, I went off to boarding school between 6 and 7, and both initially Blue Mountains Grammar School, then most of the time down in Victoria and Sale at Gippsland Grammar, and my last three and a half years up at Trinity Grammar School in Sydney.
Now, I asked you this question off air, and it didn't seem to irritate you, so I'm going to ask you it again. When you went to school, were you known as Slim Dusty's son, or were you known as David Kirkpatrick?
It depended at different places. Certainly down in rural Victoria, in Sale, I was very well known as Slim Dusty's son. In fact, my nickname was Slim. But up in Sydney, no, not so much. I was just known it, and I was older then too.
Yeah.
See, so, but yeah, most.
It was inevitable.
It was never, and particularly, I'm in boarding school. There were rural kids in the boarding school, so it didn't take long for him to figure that out.
Now, of course, your dad is best known, I think, for his country and western music. Is that the type of music that you first fell in love with?
No. The first music I fell in love with was the Monkees, followed by the Beatles and the Stones. Then I went through all the usual stuff through Creedence Clearwater, then into Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and the whole bit, Jimi Hendrix. And when I was at uni, I was in a cover band playing 3 or 4 nights a week, which wasn't great for my studies at that time, but got through.
So you were at medical school studying for your doctor's exams, but you were also involved in bands.
Oh, yeah.
How did those two fit together? Because I would have imagined, you had to study quite hard at
You
medical school.
You do, yes. So it was a lot of late nights or other days trying to fit it all in. I eventually, in the last 6 months, I said to the band, look, I just can't do it anymore. I've got to stop.
Yeah.
But I've always had bands. As I said, I came up to Gosford as an intern. Within a week of being here, I had a band of other interns we were playing already. So it's not uncommon, for a lot of doctors to play music.
Right.
But to answer your question, really going back, I've always had a foot. I've always loved country music because I grew up with it, and I loved, whatever the music was at the time. So that's why I call what I do now country rock, because it really is an amalgamation. I can play, and when I started writing myself, I didn't try to write in any genre. I just wrote, but it comes out with, at times, an acoustic, like the song we just played, very much a country style. Yeah. And in fact, what I write now is probably more traditional than the majority of what is called country, which is all very pop country these days. Whereas ours is a little bit more hard-edged in the electric country we do.
That's your heavy metal sort of passion shining through.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have, that's right. I try not to do that too much, but it is what it is actually, and I just play the songs, and it tends to fit in that sort of. It's a very broad definition. Country music just spreads across blues, roots music, through to pop music. So there's a pretty broad palette to draw from.
And of course, when you retired from medicine, when was that?
7 years ago.
7 years ago. That gave you the time then to develop, or to sort of, your passion of music then came to the fore. And
exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. And tell us about Two Tone Pony, and because I know you formed it. How did that happen?
It happened because of my daughter Hannah's wedding. So just before I was retiring, she asked me to put together the band for the wedding, afterwards. But she specifically said she wanted a country rock band. So I said, oh, great, because I was in a normal cover band, and that had sort of wound down by then. So I called on people I knew, not all the people who are in Two Tone Pony now, but others. And we put it together. We had a ball, and we loved it. And I said, we should keep doing this, but I don't want to be a cover band anymore. I want to take the challenge of writing my own stuff and see how we go. And so I started writing, and with encouragement for the other members in the band, I've gradually improved, and we now, all the musicians in my band are top-notch musicians who've been playing for 40-plus years. Yeah. And we call ourselves a band of mates, because we've known each other for a long time, and
you're very comfortable.
We play for the joy of playing music, but also we really, really enjoy recording our own songs now.
Yeah, and you released an album, I think, in 2024.
That's right.
You played at the Tamworth Country Music Festival. And your album, actually, I made a note of it here, it debuted at number 11 in the ARIA Country Charts.
Yeah, which was a big thrill for us.
This is more than a hobby. This is professional.
Oh, it's fun. We are quite professional now. We're currently working towards our next album. We've put out 2 singles already this year, Our latest single is still charting, and we're getting great support from community radio as well as commercial radio. We'll be back at Tamworth next year doing our first, our own in-concert performance.
Yeah.
We're playing at festivals. We play on the Central Coast here at our favourite little club called Hardy's Bay Club. That's our home base.
Little place, isn't
yeah,
it?
we love it. There's a great community-run, venue which supports local musicians. So yes, if you asked our spouses, they would say we haven't retired. We've just taken on a second career.
Yeah, that's right. Look, we're going to break for some more music, and then we'll come back and we'll briefly talk about this upcoming concert, which I'll get the date sorted out, but I think it's about the 12th of August, but I'll check that out. And it's in support of dementia research. So it's a really good cause, and we'll talk to David a little bit about that after we have heard from Naomi Cantwell, who is dancing on the grave. We're talking to David Kirkpatrick, Dr. David Kirkpatrick this morning. We've looked at his medical career. We've been talking about his music. And we want to talk now about, it's called Music in the Mind. And it's an evening that's being, it's on the 12th of August. It's the Central Coast Grammar Performing Arts Centre, which is a magnificent venue. If you haven't been there, it really is a magnificent venue for this type of thing. And the whole evening, and there's lots of musicians. Who else is there, David? We know you're there and Two Tone Pony. You've also got Kim Cannon.
Kim Cannon, yes.
Yeah, and you've got some of the kids from the school doing music.
Absolutely. Madeline Swan and her father, and Madeline actually does vocal coaching, and my sister has been seeing Madeline down because she was a speech pathologist, I think, but a beautiful voice, and her sister as well is going to be performing. From my point of view, I'll be performing with my daughter, which is because my daughter's now moved back to the Central Coast this year, and her 5-year-old has just started at grammar. So. And I'll also be one of the members of my band, Graham Puglisi, our bass player. He was a parent at the school, so his kids went through Central Coast Grammar as well. Yeah. So it's an entertaining night, and it's an informative night.
That's right. I'm reading the little flyer here. It says it's an evening of music, talent, and community spirit. And I think Dr. John Irvin, who our listeners know very well because we often talk to Dr. John here on Rhema, he will also be giving a little talk on dementia and the impact that it has on people and how music affects people. And off air, I was talking to David about the connection between music and dementia, and it's quite fascinating, isn't it?
It is, and there's more and more scientific evidence coming out. But, I think that was generated because of the anecdotal stories of people in nursing homes who may have been sitting in the corner really not doing much, and then someone comes in once a week and starts playing music, and that person just lights up, stands up, dances.
Yeah.
And it's known, as you were saying before, Phil, in the studies, release of endorphins and other feel-good sort of neurotransmitters, which is good for your body and it's good for your brain, and it's wired into you, and it's part of memory, and it's part of music is interesting because you can have certain memories that are linked to a certain song that takes you to a particular time in your life. You hear that song and you go, I remember when I was 17 and my mates were here and we went to see that band. And it's an instant picture in your mind and you instantly feel happy, you know. I mean, music, I don't know many people who, as long as they're listening to music they like, but most people like some sort of music, and it gives you a feeling, It's hard to describe.
Yeah, and again, I just found this on Google, so take this with a pinch of salt. Dr. Google, perhaps not as good as Dr. David, but Dr. Google said, or it referred me to a 10-year-old study of nearly 11,000 adults between 70 and older, or 70 and older, and this was Monash University, so a respectable, reputable university, and they found that daily music listening was linked to a 39% lower risk of dementia, which is incredible. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing, and music therapy is such it's a recognised area for dementia, but for lots and lots of different sort of maladies. And I know people going back and doing the courses to do this. For me, it's a no-brainer because I love music so much. And if I'm feeling down, all I need to go down and do is pick up my guitar and play, or go and sit down to some good music, and I instantly feel better.
I'm going to pick you up on good music there, because I did hear earlier you say you like the Monkees, and I'm not so sure.
Oh, you look at the people who wrote the music for the Monkees. There's Neil Sedaka, there's Harry Nilsson, Carole King. So you actually look at the people on those first two albums. So no, the Monkees.
Okay, I stand corrected. I think. But let's get it in our minds. It's Wednesday the 12th of August. It starts at 6 o'clock in the evening. It's going to be a great time. You will be informed of the latest developments in dementia research, and you will also have a wonderful evening of all types of different music. It's at the Central Coast Performing Arts Centre. There on the entrance. Oh no, it's Central Coast Highway.
Yep.
I still call it the entrance road. And all the funds raised go to Neura, and they are a national charity who raise money for dementia research. So look, it's a great thing to get behind. As far as tickets are concerned, I've got a phone number. And the tickets are $39. But again, all proceeds are going to Neura for dementia research. So there's no element of profit making here. All the receipts go straight to Neura. If you're interested, 4365-8497. Or go to Google, type in Central Coast Grammar School Music and the Mind, and it'll come up and you'll see it. And if you didn't get that number, give us a ring here at Rhema Central Coast, because we've got the flyers and we can let you know that number. But it's 4365-8497. Look, it's been fascinating talking to you, David, to both parts of you, the doctor and the musician. It's been wonderful that you came in. I know you're such a busy man, but we do thank you for coming in and sharing some of your time with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Phil. And again, I echo you to encourage people, if they just want to hear some good music, but in particular if they have loved ones who have dementia or they're interested in learning more, you're going to hear a lot of useful information.
Yeah, and a lot of good music from Two Tone Pony and other artists. Thanks, David.